The warning: the galaxy was vast, filled with thousands of worlds and countless species. But among them were the Yulari, a gentle and peaceful race, small in number yet rich in kindness. They were farmers, healers, and dreamers, never known for war, never known for violence. They believed peace was the only way to survive in a galaxy filled with predators. For centuries, the Yulari lived quietly on their green worlds, far from the centers of power, but peace never lasts forever, and the Draven Empire had noticed them. The Draven were cruel conquerors, tall and armored. Their fleets spread fear wherever they flew. To them, weakness was an invitation, and mercy was nothing but a flaw. The Draven wanted slaves. They wanted resources. They wanted control. The Yulari could not resist. They had no armies, no fleets, no weapons to defend themselves, so, desperate and afraid, the Yulari turned to the one species the galaxy whispered about with both hope and fear: humanity. At first, the council of the Yulari was uncertain. Many species mocked humans, calling them reckless, violent, and unstable. They were young compared to other star nations. But the Yulari saw something else in humanity. They saw fire, they saw loyalty, they saw the strange way humans protected their friends, even if it meant war, so the Yulari sent a call for help. Their message was simple: if we fall, no one will remember us. But if you, the humans, stand with us, we may yet survive. When the message reached Earth, silence followed. Leaders gathered in secret. Generals, admirals, diplomats, and presidents sat around long tables listening to the plea. The Yulari offered nothing of great value. They had no technology to share, no weapons to trade, but they had asked for help. And to humans, that was enough. The decision was swift. Humanity sent back their answer. It was not a long speech. It was not filled with politics, it was a single warning, carried across the stars to the Draven Empire itself. Touch them once, and you will answer to us. The message echoed through the galactic channels. Some laughed. The Draven Council mocked it openly. To them, humanity was nothing more than a loud but untested species. Yes, humans had ships, yes, they had fought wars, but never against a great empire, never against the Draven. The Draven High Lord sneered at the recording, his voice deep and cruel as he said, "These humans think themselves protectors. They forget their place if they wish to defend cattle. They will die with cattle." But not everyone in the galaxy laughed. In hidden chambers, other alien leaders whispered nervously. They remembered human history. They remembered the short but brutal wars humans had fought even against themselves. They remembered how humanity never let go once they were provoked. The Yulari waited, hope trembling in their hearts. They did not know if humanity's words were real or only empty promises. But when the first human warships appeared in orbit above Yulari's homeworld, shining black and silver under the twin suns, the people cried tears of relief. Humanity had come. The human admiral spoke before the gathered Yulari council, his voice calm but heavy with iron. "You asked for help. We have given our warning. Now we wait. If they strike, we will answer, but there will be no second warning." In that moment, the Yulari understood something the galaxy had yet to learn. Humans did not threaten lightly. They did not bluff. Their words were simple, and their actions were absolute. Days passed, tension building like a storm. The Draven gathered fleets at the borders of Yulari space. They believed the humans were arrogant, that they could not stand against the might of an empire. But even as they prepared their attack, humanity's fleets grew larger. Warships from Earth, Mars, and the colonies arrived one after another. Black banners carrying the sigil of Earth hanging in space. Inside the command decks, human officers waited with steady silence. Soldiers checked their weapons. Pilots slept beside their fighters. Everyone knew what the warning meant. If the Draven dared to move, humanity would unleash everything. The galaxy watched in silence, transmissions flowing to every corner. Some thought the humans were fools. Others thought them brave, but none could ignore them now. Then the moment of decision came. The Draven fleets crossed into Yulari space. Testing the border, they fired on an outpost, a small colony filled with farmers. The screams of the Yulari reached the stars once more, echoing through every channel on Earth's flagship. The admiral opened his eyes and gave a single order. His voice was like thunder, calm and final. They were warned once. Now we answer. The stars themselves seemed to tremble for the first time. The galaxy was about to learn what humanity's warning truly meant. The betrayal. The first warning had been given, and humanity had placed its fleets in orbit, silent but ready. For a time, the galaxy held its breath, waiting to see if the Draven Empire would dare. The Yulari clung to hope, believing perhaps fear of humanity would hold the conquerors back. But cruelty does not fear warnings. Greed does not stop because of words. The Draven had built their empire on pain, and they believed this time would be no different. In the shadows of Yulari space, the Draven War Council gathered. 1,000 holographic stars shimmered above their table, marking every world they had already taken. The High Lord slammed his clawed hand on the metal surface, sparks of light scattering across the map. Humans are weak, he growled. They bark loudly, but they are few. Their fleets are untested. They lack the will to rule. If we crush the Yulari quickly, the humans will be forced to retreat. They will not risk a full war with us. The other warlords nodded, their eyes cold with hunger. They had heard the human warning, but in their arrogance they believed it meant nothing. Soon the betrayal began. Without declaration, without mercy, the Draven fleet struck. They descended on a quiet Yulari colony moon, where families farmed under glowing skies. The attack was fast and brutal. Draven dropships poured fire into villages, towers of smoke rising into the clouds. The Yulari had no defenses, no armies. They ran, they screamed, but they could not escape. Children were dragged into chains, families torn apart, and the skies turned black with burning fields, and all of it, every scream, every cry for help was broadcast across the stars. The Draven made sure of it. They wanted humanity to see. They wanted the galaxy to see. To them it was not just war, it was mockery. The humans had said, "Touch them once and you will answer to us." The Draven wanted to prove those words empty. On Earth's flagship, Indomitable, the screams reached the bridge. Officers watched as the outpost burned. The Yulari Council fell into despair, voices breaking, begging the humans to save their people. But the Admiral's face was stone. His voice was low, steady, filled with something terrible. This was their choice. They touched them. They cannot undo it now. Behind him, human soldiers stood in silence. Each man and woman in black armor watched the burning colonies. Their eyes hardened. They had trained for war. They had sworn to protect allies, and now the oath demanded blood. The betrayal had cut deeper than war. It was personal. The Draven had not only ignored the warning, they had mocked it. They had shown the galaxy that human mercy meant nothing. And so humanity's heart changed. No longer were they defenders waiting in silence. Now they were executioners preparing their hand. The orders came swiftly across the fleet. Red lights flashed, engines roared. Weapons came alive, railguns loaded, plasma batteries glowed. Carriers released wings of fighters that darkened the stars. The soldiers marched to their stations. Marines sharpened blades and checked rifles. Pilots sealed helmets, their voices calm but filled with steel as they repeated the oath. For those who cry for help, for those betrayed, for those who trusted us, we fight. The galaxy watched in silence as humanity prepared to strike back. Alien leaders trembled as they realized something had shifted. Humanity was no longer a young race shouting warnings. Humanity had been provoked back on the burning colony. Yulari survivors huddled in ruins. Families cried under the night sky, believing hope was gone, but above the smoke, they saw shadows moving, massive ships of black steel breaking through the clouds, human warships silent and waiting. Engines burning bright, one little Yulari child, clutching her mother's hand, pointed upward through the ash and whispered. They came, but the Admiral's words were far colder, transmitted to every human ship, every soldier, every fighter pilot, and across to the Draven High Command. You were warned once, only once you chose betrayal. Now we show you the price. The betrayal was complete. The galaxy had witnessed the crime. Now it would witness the punishment. And in that silence, in that moment before war erupted, a truth echoed across the stars. Humanity does not forgive betrayal. Humanity does not repeat warnings. Humanity answers with fire. The retaliation. The galaxy had seen betrayal, but it had not yet seen the storm. The burning of the Yulari colony was the spark, and humanity was the fire waiting to consume everything in its path. When the Draven fleet left the ruined colony, their commanders laughed. They believed they had proven humanity's warning empty. They believed the galaxy would now see humans as weak talkers. Nothing more, but as their ships crossed into open space, sensors began to scream. Dozens of human warships appeared from hyperspace, Cutting off the escape routes, they did not announce themselves. They did not send messages, they came in silence. The Draven laughed at first, then the first railgun volley struck. One of their cruisers split in half instantly, its hull shredded into glowing shards. The void was filled with burning wreckage before the crew could even scream. Plasma beams followed, burning through armor that had stood against 100 battles. Now it cracked like paper. The Draven commanders shouted orders, their fleets turning to fight. But humanity's attack was too fast. Too precise, fighters swarmed like angry wasps. Missiles streaked through the dark, every shot was brutal. Calculated, final. For centuries, the Draven had been the hunters. Now they realized they were the prey. On the bridge of the Indomitable, the Admiral stood calm. His officers fired commands, weapons tracked targets, and every human voice spoke as one. Fire at will. The retaliation was merciless. Human ships cut through enemy formations, tearing holes in their defenses. The Yulari survivors watching from the ground could see flashes in the sky, like storms of fire raining down upon their tormentors. Draven captains cried for reinforcements, but none came. Their allies, who had mocked humanity, now watched in silence, unwilling to join a war against a species that fought with such fury. Inside the Draven flagship, panic spread. Their high commander demanded, "How are they this strong?" "They are only humans." But the answer was already clear. Humans had prepared for war all their lives. They had written history in blood. They had fought each other in endless conflicts, and each war had only made them stronger. Now all that fury, all that skill, all that fire was aimed outward, toward those who betrayed their friends. Human Marines boarded enemy ships, black-armored soldiers storming corridors. Blades flashed, rifles roared. Draven warriors fell one after another. Shock spread as even the strongest soldiers of the Empire could not stop a human advance. One Marine squad breached the Draven command deck. Their leader spoke only one sentence before opening fire. "This is for the Yulari." Every death, every strike, every shot was not just war, it was vengeance. The retaliation shook the galaxy. Across networks and channels, countless species watched the transmissions. They saw human warships moving like predators. They saw empires that once boasted now crumble. They saw the truth of humanity's warning. And still the humans did not stop. They drove deeper into enemy lines, destroying shipyards, burning supply depots, leaving nothing behind but silence and ash. One after another, the Draven systems fell. No world was safe, no fleet strong enough. Humanity had unleashed its fury, and the galaxy trembled. On Yulari's homeworld, children gathered to watch the skies. Their elders whispered prayers of gratitude. For the first time in their history, someone had come not to conquer them, but to defend them. And they defended not with shields, not with words, but with fire and steel. Yet even as victory spread, humanity's tone never changed. The Admiral spoke again. His words carried across every surviving Draven channel. "You were warned once. We do not repeat warnings. You chose this path. Now you will walk it to the end." Those words became legend, carried in whispers across the galaxy, to friend and foe alike. Humanity's retaliation was not just war, it was a promise. A promise that if you betrayed their friends, if you tested their loyalty, you would face something the stars themselves could not hide from. The retaliation was far from over. Humanity was not satisfied with one battle. They would keep striking until every Draven world knew fear, until every empire understood what one warning truly meant. And as the galaxy watched in silence, one truth became clear. The humans were not fighting for themselves. They were fighting for loyalty, for friendship, for the Yulari who had trusted them. And when humanity fought for others, their fury became unstoppable. The retaliation had only just begun. The reckoning, the retaliation had shattered fleets, burned outposts, and broken the pride of the Draven. But humanity was not finished. For them, this was no simple battle, it was justice. And justice demanded more than a single victory. The war moved deeper into the Draven Empire. Human fleets surged like waves through the stars. Every system they entered fell within hours, not days. Railguns tore fortresses apart. Plasma storms turned enemy fleets into drifting fire. The Draven had always believed themselves untouchable, but now their home sectors shook with fear. Civilian worlds cried out for protection, but no protection came. Their warlords had mocked the warning, and now their people paid the price. On the bridge of the Indomitable, the Admiral watched reports pour in. Worlds captured, fleets destroyed, enemy soldiers surrendering by the thousands. His face never changed, cold and unreadable. His officers followed every order with silence. They knew what this war was. It was a reckoning. Across the galaxy, other empires watched the storm. Some had once laughed at humanity's bold words, now they whispered to each other in fear, wondering if their own arrogance might one day bring the same fate. The reckoning was not just against the Draven, it was a message to all. Human soldiers entered captured cities, but unlike the Draven, they did not slaughter the innocent. Instead, they freed the Yulari slaves chained in the streets. They brought food, medicine, safety. The people wept, not because of fear, but because they were saved. Every broadcast spread the same image: Draven banners burning, and human soldiers lifting Yulari children into safety. To the galaxy it became clear: humans did not conquer for greed. They conquered for loyalty, but the Draven High Lords still clung to pride. They gathered the remnants of their fleets, forming a massive armada near their core worlds. Millions of soldiers, hundreds of warships, weapons that had broken countless enemies before. The Draven believed this would be the turning point. They would show humanity that the Empire was still unbreakable. Yet when the battle began, it was no contest. The human fleets did not hesitate. They descended with black armored warships that cut through the armada like fire through dry grass. Missiles fell like rain. Railgun slugs shattered cruisers. Boarding parties stormed enemy flagships. Draven commanders screamed for retreat. But there was nowhere to run. Humanity had surrounded them. The stars themselves seemed filled with human warships. Endless and merciless, one Yulari counselor, watching the broadcasts, whispered in awe. They warned once. Only once, and this is the price of ignoring them. On the ground, the reckoning grew darker. Human marines stormed Draven fortresses, breaking chains, freeing thousands of Yulari captives. The sight of the freed walking into the light, holding the hands of human soldiers, became the most powerful symbol the galaxy had ever seen. But mercy was for the innocent only. The Draven warlords were hunted one by one, dragged from their thrones and judged not by courts, but by human steel. The Admiral's final message echoed across the Empire, broadcast to every channel, every screen, every world. You were warned and you chose betrayal. This is the price of arrogance. This is the reckoning of humanity. The words froze even the strongest hearts. For the first time in living memory, the Draven Empire, once the nightmare of the galaxy, was broken. Yet humanity did not claim their worlds. They did not raise flags or demand tribute. Instead, they turned the freed lands back to the Yulari and other species who had suffered under Draven rule. The galaxy gasped at the sight. For empires of old had always conquered for themselves, but humanity fought for something greater, for friends, for loyalty, for promises kept. Still, the fear remained. If this was how humans treated betrayal against their allies, what would they do if one day someone betrayed humanity itself? The reckoning was not just a punishment. It was a warning to all who might dare test them. Humanity was no longer seen as reckless newcomers. They were seen as guardians, protectors, and executioners when needed. And in the silence that followed the burning of the Draven homeworld's fleet, the galaxy finally understood. The reckoning was not over. The reckoning would never end. As long as humanity lived, betrayal would always have a price. The legacy, the fires of war burned low. The Draven Empire, once feared as an unstoppable beast, lay shattered. Its fleet scattered, its fortresses broken, its warlords gone. In the silence that followed, the galaxy waited to see what humanity would do. For empires of the past, victory meant conquest. It meant banners raised on alien worlds. It meant chains placed on the defeated. But humanity was different. When their ships landed, they did not enslave, they freed. When their soldiers marched, they did not demand tribute, they rebuilt. On the ruined worlds of the Draven, Yulari families were lifted from rubble by human hands. Children were wrapped in warm blankets. Survivors given food and medicine. Every image spread through the networks of the galaxy. A species that had once been mocked now stood as saviors. And yet behind that mercy a shadow of fear lingered. The galaxy whispered to itself, if this is how they defend their friends, what happens if one day humanity itself is betrayed? The Draven's legacy of terror had ended, but humanity's legacy was just beginning. In the council halls of distant empires, alien leaders argued in panic. Some demanded that humanity be stopped before they grew stronger. But none dared raise arms, for the memory of shattered fleets was still too fresh. Others spoke with awe. asking instead how to gain human friendship. For now it was clear. Friendship with humanity was the most valuable shield in the galaxy. The Yulari, once weak and forgotten, now walked with pride. For beside them stood the warriors of Earth. The Yulari Council declared a day of remembrance. They named it the Day of One Warning, honoring the moment when humanity's promise became legend. Stories spread like wildfire. Tales of black-armored marines who tore through fortresses to free children, of warships that blotted out stars, of an admiral whose cold words shook an empire to its knees. But what captured hearts across the stars was not the destruction, it was the loyalty. Humanity had nothing to gain from saving the Yulari. No riches, no power, no technology. And yet they had given everything. They had shed blood, risked worlds, and faced an empire. All for the sake of keeping a promise. This became their legacy. On Earth, the people mourned their fallen, but they also stood taller. Humanity had shown the galaxy who they were. They were not conquerors, they were not slaves to power. They were something far more dangerous. They were protectors who never forgot a bond. In the shadows, survivors of the Draven Empire trembled. They had believed themselves predators. But now they lived in fear of the humans. They whispered to their children, warning them never to cross the line. The humans warned once. Only once. Across neutral worlds, species debated in hushed voices. Some feared humans as monsters of vengeance. Others saw them as the only light in a dark galaxy. But all agreed on one truth. No one would ever again ignore a warning from Earth. The Admiral of the Indomitable returned to Yulari's homeworld. His soldiers stood tall as he addressed both Yulari and human alike. His words were not long, not filled with glory. They were simple, heavy, final. We came because you asked for help. We fought because you were betrayed. Remember this, all of you. Across every star, we warned once and we kept our word. That is what it means to call humanity a friend. Those words became eternal, carved into stone, etched into memory. A new era began, not ruled by the Draven Empire, but shaped by humanity's example. The galaxy had learned fear, but it had also learned hope. For in humanity it saw both the sword and the shield, the fury of vengeance and the mercy of friendship. Legends grew in every corner. Children of many species played games, pretending to be human soldiers, whispering the famous line, "They warned once." And in the deepest chambers of alien councils, rulers swore never to forget. For if one day their greed tempted them to strike at humanity or its allies, they knew what would follow. A reckoning, a storm, a legacy of fire. And so it was written in the stars. Humanity gave only one warning, and the galaxy never dared test it again.